No matter how strongly she fought it, Portia's evenings at home had fallen into a routine. She had tried for a long time to prolong a state of perpetual crisis by arguing with Pete and Hilary over everything and nothing, but over the weeks the outbursts subsided, and life began to assume a normality that she was not able to resist, however much of a betrayal the very assumption of ordinariness in life might signify. Were it not for Gordon, she felt she would have gone mad. With tremendous tact and psychological understanding, he had suggested that instead of waiting for news or continuing to sit by Sir Charles's bedside, looking in vain for signs of recovery, she could do Gordon a great favour by showing him the sights of London. All the crazy tourist shit, he meant. Stupid stuff that would take her mind off Madstone Junior and Madstone Senior at least for a few hours every day. He'd really appreciate it. He was starting to feel homesick, and he still couldn't find his way round the city. Pete conceded that it would be cruel to hold her to any promise of working through the summer holidays, and had provided enough pocket money for the two of them to buy summer travel passes and spend long days trailing around galleries, churches, museums, and royal palaces. "I want you both to keep a notebook," Peter had said. "The architecture and building in London is a discourse on the movement of power and money. You'll find it's a kind of economic geology, from the church to the kings, to the aristocracy, to the merchant classes, to the banks, and finally to the multinationals. It's like reading rock strata." Gordon and Portia took no notice of this, and pressed the buttons at the Science Museum, giggled at the yeomen of the guard, and tried to get the sentries in their boxes outside St. James's Palace to flinch or move their eyes, just like the other adolescent tourists they accompanied around London. Portia found that taking Gordon around her favourite art galleries and explaining the pictures to him was as close as she had come to pleasure for many weeks. It was something to be able to answer questions, to be needed and useful. Pete never asked to see the notebook he had insisted on. His own time was taken up by his summer students at the Polytechnic. One of them had flattered him into forming a discussion group for the analysis of British colonialism in Northern Ireland, and Peter had bullied the Inner London Educational Authority into funding a visit to Belfast so that they could see for themselves what was happening on the ground, as Pete liked to say. Hilary, busy with her novel, was happy enough in the belief that Portia was in the hands of a sensible cousin. Twice a week, Portia still went to visit Sir Charles. It was a relief to her that the press were no longer keeping up a vigil outside the hospital gates, but it was a sign too of waning public interest, and that worried her. Events had moved on, and the disappearance of the cabinet minister's son had slipped from the front pages to smaller paragraphs inside, until quietly dropping from the agenda entirely. At the height of the public fever, when the Prime Minister, cutting short her holiday in the south of France, had stopped at the hospital entrance, assuring the cameras that steps would be taken and revenge exacted, Ned's kidnapping had been the sensation of the summer period, known in journalistic circles, Portia discovered with distaste, as the silly season. But, as sightings of Ned dwindled and reports emerged that the IRA were now denying any part in the affair, the papers began to suggest that the whole thing had never been anything more than a family row, a teenage tantrum of the kind that went on every day. They resumed with relish the usual August parade of 50-stone women, two-tailed dogs, and string beans that spelled out Armageddon in Hebrew. The senior newsmen left Britain for their summer holidays, and the deputies, minding the shop, preferred not to mess with tradition. Besides, the only person worth interviewing would have been Charles Madstone, and he wasn't saying a word to anybody.